The rain was falling hard that night, beating against the windows like the sky itself was angry. I remember standing by the fireplace, holding a cup of tea that had already gone cold. My husband, Richard, was sitting at the kitchen table, his face half hidden behind a pile of papers. When I asked what those papers were, he didn't even look up. "Don't worry about it, Mary," he said. "It's business." His tone was cold, distant, not the man I'd shared 30 years of laughter, and quiet dinners with. And then, without warning, he stood up, grabbed his suitcase, and said the words that still echo in my mind, "The house is mine, Mary. You'll have to find somewhere else." At first, I laughed, thinking it was one of his cruel jokes. But he didn't laugh. He walked right out that door, into the storm, and never looked back. The sound of that door closing felt like the end of everything. That night, I realized love doesn't always end with a fight. Sometimes it ends in silence, with someone walking away and taking your whole world with them. Hi everyone, before I tell you what happened next, I just want to say, welcome to my story. My name is Mary, and if you've ever loved someone who broke your heart, this story is for you. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? You can even share your story in a few words. Maybe, just maybe, you'll find a piece of healing here too. After Richard left, the house went quiet. Every corner of that place reminded me of what we once were, our wedding photo on the wall, the pencil marks showing our son Daniel's height, the old rocking chair by the window where I used to wait for Richard to come home. But he wasn't coming back. A week later, there was a knock at the door. A man in a suit stood there, holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Miller," he said, "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Richard Miller. You'll need to vacate the property within 2 weeks." His words didn't make sense. "Vacate?" I asked, trembling. "This is my home." He looked at me almost apologetically and said, "Your husband signed the deed in his name alone." I felt the ground disappear beneath me. The walls blurred. The home I had built, the memories I had filled it with, none of it was legally mine. I packed slowly, one memory at a time. When I finally closed the door, I whispered, "You may own the house, Richard, but you'll never own my spirit." I moved into a small wooden cabin on the edge of town. It wasn't much, one room, a small fireplace, and a bed that creaked when I turned, but it was honest. I started selling handmade quilts at the market, earning little by little. Some nights, I'd sit by the window, watching the stars, whispering to myself, "You'll be okay, Mary. You always find a way." Years passed. Life was quiet, sometimes too quiet. But I learned to live with it. And then, one afternoon, there was a knock on my door. A young woman stood there, holding a small box. "Are you Mrs. Mary Miller?" she asked. I nodded. "My name is Claire," she said softly. "I work at the law office that handled your husband's estate. We recently found something, a letter addressed to you." "A letter? From Richard? After all these years?" My heart raced as I took the box. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed with age and sealed with wax. 3 words were written on the front in his handwriting, "For Mary, Truth." I sat by the fire, holding that letter. My hands were shaking. I was afraid to open it. Because sometimes the truth hurts more than the lie. But deep down, I knew, whatever was inside, it was time. It was time to face it all. And what I found inside would change everything I thought I knew about the man who left me. The fire crackled softly as I sat there, staring at the letter in my trembling hands. The storm outside had finally quieted down, but inside me, a storm was only beginning. My fingers brushed across the rough edge of the envelope, feeling the ridges of his handwriting, Richard's handwriting. Even after all these years, just seeing his name made my chest tighten. Part of me wanted to throw the letter into the fire and let it burn with all the pain he'd caused me, but another part, the part that still needed answers, whispered, "Open it, Mary." And so I did. The paper inside was yellowed and folded neatly, carrying the faint scent of his old cologne. I unfolded it slowly, my eyes hesitating on the first line before I finally began to read. "Mary, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone. But before you hate me completely, please listen." My hands froze. Gone. My heart pounded against my ribs as my eyes darted down the page. I did what I did not because I stopped loving you, but because I made a mistake long ago. I signed everything, the business, the house, even the land, under my name to protect us from a lawsuit. I thought I could fix it. But when everything collapsed, I realized it all legally belonged to me alone. I panicked. And instead of admitting the truth, I ran. I felt my throat tighten as his words cut deeper than I expected. He hadn't left because he stopped caring. He left because he was too proud to admit he had failed us. I read on, tears now clouding my eyes. "You were the heart of that home, Mary. You kept it alive. I was just the man standing beside you. Pride made me destroy everything I loved." My tears dropped onto the paper, smudging the ink. For years I had cursed his name, believing he'd chosen another life over ours. But here it was, his confession, his truth, and maybe his redemption. Then one line caught my eye and made my breath hitch. "If you ever find this letter, I've left something behind, something that rightfully belongs to you. Go to the old barn on our property. Behind the second wooden beam near the left wall, there's a tin box. Inside it is the truth, and maybe a way to start over." My hands trembled as I folded the letter back up. I could almost hear his voice saying those words, soft and regretful. The barn. I hadn't been there in years. Memories of sunlight streaming through the cracks, the smell of hay, and the sound of laughter filled my mind. That place had once held love, and now, maybe, it held answers too. Just then, my little grandson, Noah, looked up from where he was sitting by the fireplace, his toy truck in hand. "Grandma," he asked softly, "why are you crying?" I wiped my tears quickly and smiled at him. "Because, sweetheart," I said gently, "sometimes the truth comes late, but it still finds its way." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that barn, old and silent, calling me back. By morning, I had made up my mind. I packed a small bag, took Noah with me, and told him we were going on an adventure. The drive to the old property felt longer than I remembered. The trees lining the road had grown thicker, older, almost like they were guarding the past. When we finally arrived, my breath caught in my throat. The house was still standing, empty, lifeless, and covered in dust. But the barn was still there too. We walked through the overgrown grass, pushing open the heavy wooden doors that groaned in protest. Dust floated in the sunlight like tiny ghosts of memory. Noah sneezed, and I couldn't help but smile. My heart raced as I walked to the back wall and began counting the beams. 1, 2, 3, the second on the left. My fingers brushed over the wood. I tapped it lightly, hollow. With trembling hands, I pried it loose, and behind it, hidden in the darkness, was a small, rusted tin box. Noah's wide eyes watched as I pulled it free. "What's in there, Grandma?" he whispered. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said, my voice shaking, "but we are about to find out." I opened the box slowly. Inside, wrapped in a faded handkerchief, were a stack of papers and an old photograph. The photo made me gasp. It was of me, Richard, and Daniel standing right in front of that same barn, smiling like the world belonged to us. I hadn't seen that picture in decades. My hand shook as I picked up the papers underneath, and that's when I saw it, my name. The property deed. The land. The house. All of it. Transferred quietly into my name before he died. At the bottom, a note written in his shaky handwriting. I fixed it, Mary. It all belongs to you now. I couldn't say I was sorry when I was alive, so I'm saying it now. For a moment, I just sat there in silence, the weight of years of anger and heartbreak breaking apart inside me. All those lonely nights wondering why, all the pain I carried in my chest, it melted into tears. Richard had left me with nothing once, but now he had given me everything back, not just the house, but peace. Noah came closer and hugged me tightly. "Grandma," he said softly, "are you happy now?" I smiled through tears and held him close. "Yes, baby. Because sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are the ones who try to fix it in their own broken way." Then, as I put the papers back inside the box, I noticed something else. A smaller envelope tucked beneath the deeds. On the front, in the same trembling handwriting, were the words, "For Daniel." My heart skipped a beat. My son. There was another secret, one Richard had left for him. And as I held that envelope in my hands, I knew this story wasn't over yet. The morning sunlight poured gently through the dusty windows of the barn as I sat there, holding that small envelope marked, "For Daniel." My hands trembled as I turned it over, feeling its weight, light but heavy with meaning. For a moment, I couldn't bring myself to open it. After everything I'd just discovered, I wasn't sure I was ready for another truth. Richard's first letter had already shaken my world. This one was meant for our son. Noah sat beside me, his little legs swinging back and forth. "Is that for my dad?" he asked curiously. I nodded, staring at the delicate handwriting. "Yes, sweetheart," I whispered. "Your grandpa wrote this a long time ago, before he passed." We drove back home in silence, the tin box sitting on the seat beside me. Every mile between the old house and my little cottage felt like a bridge between past and present. When we finally pulled into the driveway, I could see Daniel's truck parked out front. He must have come by to check on us. My heart tightened. We hadn't spoken properly in weeks. Ever since his father left years ago, something in him had hardened, toward life, toward me. I took a deep breath, clutching the envelope in my hand. Maybe, just maybe, this letter could heal what time and pride had broken. Inside, Daniel sat at the table, sipping coffee and scrolling on his phone. He looked up when I walked in. "Mom," he said, surprised, "where would you go so early?" I placed the tin box on the table between us. His eyes followed it, confused. "What's that?" "Something your father left behind," I said quietly. "And this," I added, holding up the smaller envelope, "is for you." He froze, staring at it like it was something dangerous. "From him?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded. "I found it in the old barn." He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "Mom, I don't need." "Please," I interrupted gently, sliding it across the table. "Just read it." For a few seconds, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he reached out and took it. His fingers brushed the edges, almost like he was afraid it would burn him. He tore it open, and the room fell completely silent except for the soft rustle of paper. His eyes moved back and forth, his lips parting slightly as he read. I could see his expression change, confusion, then shock, then something softer. He swallowed hard and looked at me. "Mom," his voice cracked, he said he was sorry. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. "He said it to me too." Daniel's voice trembled as he continued reading aloud. "Son, I know I failed you. I left you angry, lost, and believing that I chose pride over family. But I never stopped loving you. I left because I couldn't face what I'd done to your mother, and to you. You were just a boy when I walked away, but I need you to know, every single day since then, I carried that regret like a stone in my chest." He stopped, his voice breaking. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. He didn't pull away this time. He took a shaky breath and went on. "In the barn, behind the beam, there's a second tin box, smaller, wrapped in cloth. Inside it is a deed to the hardware shop I started. It's yours now, Daniel. I built it with my hands, but I want you to rebuild it with your heart. Don't make my mistakes. Don't let pride steal your peace the way it stole mine." Daniel dropped the letter onto the table, covering his face with his hands. He wasn't a man who cried easily, but now he couldn't stop the tears. I stood slowly and walked around the table, placing my arms around his shoulders. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence between us, the same silence that had lasted for years, was finally filled with something else, forgiveness. After a while, he looked up at me, eyes red but clearer than I'd seen them in years. "You knew he loved us, didn't you?" he asked softly. I smiled faintly. I hoped he did. But today, I finally know for sure. We sat there for hours, talking about the past, the good, the bad, and the pieces we both tried to forget. For the first time, I saw my son not as the angry boy who blamed his parents, but as a man finally ready to understand them. A few days later, Daniel and I drove back to the barn together. We searched behind the beam, just as Richard had said, and there it was, another small tin box wrapped in cloth. Inside, we found the old shop's deed, a few photographs, and a faded business card with Richard's handwriting on the back. It read, "Make it better than I ever could." Daniel smiled through his tears, clutching the card to his chest. "I will, Dad," he whispered. As we stood there in the barn, sunlight streaming through the cracks, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Years of bitterness and silence had finally broken. My husband's mistakes had hurt us deeply, but in his final act, he had given us something far greater: truth, healing, and the chance to start over. Later that night, as Noah fell asleep in my lap, I sat by the window, listening to the wind. Life has a strange way of coming full circle. Sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are the same ones who give us the strength to forgive. I realized that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what happened, it was about freeing ourselves from the weight of it. I looked up at the night sky and whispered softly, "Thank you, Richard, for finally setting us free." Then I smiled, kissed my grandson's forehead, and turned off the light. For the first time in many, many years, my heart was at peace.